Welcome to Pondering Passages. I'm Curt Austin. My friend David Mullins and I are going to work through Psalm 111 today as we ponder that and what it means for our lives. Especially excited about this passage. Feel like it aligns perfectly with what we've been trying to do. And I hope that you come back, that you join us, and that you enjoy every single minute of it. We'll see you soon. Not that, am I too hot?
Always.
Do you need me to be a part of this conversation? I don't know. Hey!
Hey everyone, it's Becca.
I feel like Forrest Gump. Hey!
I don't know. I'm thinking. You know what the most annoying sound in the world is? No, what?
Welcome back. Thank you so much for joining us. I'm really excited about this psalm. I read it 4 years ago. I don't know that I'd read it since we had gone through this, but wow, it's pretty exciting. It's kind of like our Pondering Passages psalm.
Our psalm. And of course, you're talking about Psalm 111.
Very exciting.
And what made this exciting for you, Curt?
Well, it jumps right off with 1 and 2, and
it does jump right off with 1 and 2.
It uses the word ponder in verse 2.
Yeah, and I think even some other translations use that word as well.
Yeah, I was able to spend some time in this week looking at lots of translations to see some specific words, and we'll get into that a little further down. But let's talk about one. Oh, go.
Yeah, well, I want to ask you because we talk about translations just a little bit on here, and maybe the folks watching have one translation, but there are a lot of other translations you can access on the internet.
That's where I did it.
What did you find helpful about pulling in the other translations?
Well, and let me give some guidance because I did think about this, Dave. Blow me up, beam me up, Scotty.
If I can find where my mouse pointer is. There we go.
So I wanted you there beside me.
Well, you said blow you up, so okay.
I have an app on my phone called the Bible. There's nothing secret about it. It's the Bible, but it's not just one Bible. It's lots of Bibles. Well, that's cool. And it's almost like every translation you can think of. And it's free, doesn't cost anything. And you can then find a passage. So in this, I went to verse 10, and we'll talk about that later, but I went to verse 10, and then you can change the translation. You stay in the same passage and you go, okay, well, I want to try the Message, or I want to try American Standard, or I want to try the NIV, I want to try ESV, RSV, NLT, and you start looking at that and go, well, how did they decide to change that word, or what did that word mean there? And you kind of get would the word be a consensus of what all of the people who had worked on these translations kind of landed on. Some of them, we've talked about this in the past.
Yeah.
Some translations are very literal for what they're trying to change from the Greek.
So this case would be the Hebrew.
Yeah. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
And this is the Hebrew. And so you go back and you go, okay, well, they were trying to stick really close to that. Whereas something like the Message, which is just what's it mean for this day and age?
Yeah.
And so it's more of a, how have you phrased that?
Dynamic translation. Yeah.
And so it's really helpful to see how they'll take a word and they'll play with that without going into, what does the Hebrew, you can get it in English.
Yeah. So what did you find helpful about that? You kind of talked about the how, but what was most helpful?
Because I read a word and I go, I don't like that word.
Okay.
What is it about that word that I don't like? And I'm able to think through it, or this thought process, where it leads us through this thought process and like, well, what's that mean? And it's like, and I'll be honest, sometimes I'm looking for the friendlier version. All right.
I was just wondering if you have like a list of words that you don't like, or is it just
fear of the Lord?
Okay.
verse 10.
There we go. There we
Verse
go.
10. That's the
Okay.
one I spent all my time
Okay.
on.
Okay. And
Fear
we'll
of
get
the
there.
Lord. That's what I mean. I know we're going to talk about it, but
Yeah.
let's go to verse 1 and 2, though. I mean,
Yeah.
I got so excited as I read this because you and I, Dave, have been trying to do this. We've been trying to meet as his godly people
Yes.
who should ponder the amazing deeds of
Yeah.
the Lord.
And
I mean,
the psalm,
we're pondering it, Dave.
we are. And it's like, well, someone might say, oh, no, you're pondering the Psalms. You're not pondering his deeds. If you take a look at the Psalms, it talks a lot about his deeds.
Yeah.
In fact, this passage talks about his deeds very much subtly. Because
Very much
one
subtly.
of the, deed, I know. Have you ever started down a word? I mean, down a word. Listen to me. Down a path, and you have
Yeah.
this sentence in mind, and halfway into the sentence, you're wanting to change the sentence.
Yep. Sometimes I never know what I'm going to say.
Oh, that's a thing from The Office.
Yeah, that's an Office.
Where yeah. But anyway, the phrase "deeds of the Lord" is almost like a secret phrase. And so when you see deeds of the Lord, they're talking about bringing the people out of Egypt.
Mm-hmm.
So it's, I can't think of the word right now I'm looking for, or the phrase, but it's to key those in that are reading this, that, hey, these deeds, it was the fact that God rescued us.
And I'll tell you, if you've been following us, or if you've been reading the Psalm on your own over the last, we started with Psalm 69, and over and over and over and over again, they tell about the deeds of the Lord. They talk about going through the Red Sea, taking us out of Egypt, all of the plagues. I mean, it's just, I think reading through them this time has really opened my eyes to the story that is told repeatedly in the Psalms. That is the story of the Psalms, of God's deliverance.
And it's, of deliverance and rescue. And so even if you're like, well, I'm not Jewish, I don't track with this whole coming out of Egypt, what has God done for you?
Yeah.
Where have you seen God working in your life? And maybe if you say, I don't know that I do, then I encourage you to actually look, because God is.
Yeah.
And I think really that's where, he talks about, the psalmist talks about pondering pondering how God has rescued us.
I mean, and then if you go into verse 3, everything he does reveals his glory and majesty.
Yeah.
So let's say you don't have some kind of great deliverance story. Well, the sun rose today. The flowers are starting to come up this spring, starting to get heads. I mean, that reveals the glory and majesty of God just at the same level as delivering the people of Israel out of Egypt's hands.
Yeah.
His righteousness never fails.
And
we just lose sight of it.
Yeah. And not only that, it's God who causes us to remember those works. And if you're watching this, it's not us. It's not Curt or me helping you remember. It's God that is bringing those things into your memory. And that is
and merciful.
Yes. Yeah.
I love those words. Don't we need grace, and don't we need mercy?
We do, but more than that, I need food. Well, no, no, not more than that, actually.
We're getting there. But he gives food to those who fear him. There's that word, fear.
There's that word. So
I have to be afraid of God if I'm going to be taken care of.
Well, he might smite you.
Well, that's the thing. It's like, okay, well, if I don't
then you'd
have
be smitten by him.
And I think this goes to, there's a whole realm of study about the image of God and how you envision God in your heart, in your mind, and how you respond to that. And I think if you see God as a God of fear, that you should fear because he's terrible and awesome and he's going to be, just kill you rather than look at you, then it takes on a different, darker tone, right? I mean, it changes the relationship I have with this God that I'm supposed to be pondering the great deeds.
So what did you find out when you looked at all these translations as far as the fear?
Everybody uses fear, except even the Message used fear. except two. And I wrote them in the header of my Bible because I wanted to be reminded of this later. The Common English Bible
Okay.
uses the word honor,
Mm.
and the Amplified Bible, which is really much more similar to the Message as far as really trying to blow it out and
True,
make it it's awe-inspired reverence.
Oh, yeah.
So, which
Yeah.
in verse 9, what a holy, awe-inspiring name he has.
Yeah.
And so there, so you could say what a holy and fearful name he has, right? But instead it's awe-inspiring.
Yeah. What if it isn't the word? What if the real challenge is how we've viewed that word fear?
Yeah.
And maybe we've placed baggage on to the word.
Oh yeah.
Always seeing it negative and never seeing and I'm trying to think of another context where I would see it more as a honoring or every time I say I'm afraid of or I fear, it always has that negative connotation.
Yeah.
But that's not the case here.
If you say I fear hurricanes and tornadoes, but they are awe-inspiring in their power and in their, you respect them and you keep your distance and you make sure that you're not in the wrong place at the wrong time. So that doesn't come on, and I'll say as a kid growing up, my dad, he wasn't afraid to use the palm of his hand to correct me. And that was fearful. Yeah. But at the same time, I had a lot of respect for him, and I didn't, yes, he could do that, but more often he would direct us with, do this and not that.
Yeah.
And the fear came if I didn't do this, but I did that. That was, and I think people live in that, especially our generation where spare the rod and spoil the child was more common. I don't know, I don't know. I'm kind of on a tangent there. Fix that in post, would you?
I don't know. I think we should leave it in because again, part of pondering is really wrestling with as well. And where do I find myself? And I think you're given a good example of that. Where do I find myself in this passage? Well, I react against that term fear, but yet here it is. And in fact, verse 10, it says, fear of the Lord is the foundation of true wisdom.
Yeah. So if I take the fear and I make it only being afraid, right? If I say it's only being afraid of punishment or damnation, or in some cases, depending on how you grew up, abuse.
Yeah.
Of emotional trauma. If I'm afraid in that sense, then I don't see how that gets me wisdom. However, if in fact I have this honor and awe-inspired reverence for the majesty and power of God, then I start to see that God offers true wisdom. That brings to me true wisdom. I am able to start down that path.
I see verse 7 up there, and it says, all he does is just and good. For me, that phrase jumped out.
Yeah, I agree.
What he does is just and good. However, that is not a description for myself. All that I do is not just, and it's not good. And perhaps that's where the fear comes in, knowing that my life is, and I use this phrase a lot, out of alignment with him. And really, the psalmist says his commandments are trustworthy. So you have this rescuing of the Israelites coming out of Egypt, but right away when they get in the wilderness, he shares with him the commandments, which are to be life-giving.
Right.
They're forever true, to be obeyed faithfully and with integrity. Well, do I obey the commandments faithfully and with integrity? Those are two different things. I think you can obey the commandments, but you might not have integrity in that. I'm not sure. I'm not sure how that plays out.
Well, it's the difference between the letter of the law and the spirit of the law.
That's what I was getting to. Yeah.
Hey, really? Yeah. We were on the same page there.
I know. Yeah. I didn't know if that came through when I said it, but And I think that's what Jesus was getting to when he said, it's been said that you shall not do this, but I say that even if you, so,
Right.
I think that's the Jesus brought in that integrity part. And really, this is more about what God has done. He's paid a full ransom for his people. And now even more than in this passage, because he gave us his son. I mean, that is a price to pay, that Jesus died so that we might live.
You're talking to, when you're talking, some people want to keep the Old Testament and the New Testament separate. And I do think there's a time to read an Old Testament passage and say, this is for that.
Yeah.
But all the scripture points to Jesus. All of it. Jesus even said that.
Yeah. In Luke 24 with the folks going to Emmaus, he opened it up and their eyes were open to how he fits into the scheme of everything.
I just absolutely loved this psalm. I mean, I just felt like, there were two things that happened. One was it's just beautiful, and it points us to Jesus, it points us to God and what God wants to do in our lives and how he wants us to relate to him. But the second thing was, this may be self-serving. It felt that it was, it validated what you and I have been trying to do since May.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, really.
We're in March of 2021, and we started in May of 2020. And the thing we have been trying to do is to celebrate, to remember, to ponder these wonderful deeds God has done. Yeah, it's an Old Testament passage, and you go, well, it doesn't have anything to do with Jesus. Well, yeah, it all does. It all does, because but I was at the end of this. The fear of the Lord is the foundation of true wisdom. Man, I'm just trusting all the time that God is increasing the wisdom in my heart and my mind, not for wisdom's sake, but for the fact that I can get to know him better, which is what we've learned in Ephesians, right?
Yeah,
my prayer is that you will get to know God better.
Yeah. Which,
I don't know.
I mean, that's wisdom. I mean, if you can connect with the one who has put the stars in the sky, and really, that's looking at it from my perspective. Yeah. I mean, he created it all and is all powerful. It just is. I mean, if you had someone in your life that could basically take care of like everything, wouldn't it make sense to like get to know that person? And not only are we trying to, share his deeds through this, Curt, I think we're also trying to appropriate what we're reading into our own lives. How does this work out on Tuesday afternoon? When I'm tired and things are not going the way I'd hope they would.
Yeah, Tuesdays are a bad day for you, aren't they? Just in general.
No, they're not. I just threw it out there. Could be Thursday.
Yeah, I think that's exactly right. What good is it to become a master of these words if they don't somehow transform the life we live?
Yeah.
The relationship we have, the connections with the followers of Christ. I don't know. It seems like this passage kind of brings together everything that we've been talking about and where God is taking us, if we're just open to following. I love it. I love it.
Yeah. All who obey his commandments will grow in wisdom.
I love it. This is just, it's so exciting. And it makes me want to read 112.
And we're going to be there. And I read that 112 and 111 come together. Yeah. Oh, and should have mentioned this at the beginning, that this is how do you say it? Acrostic?
Acrostic?
Or caustic? I forget. I'd have to see the word. Well, did I say it right the first time?
Yeah, you did.
And then you made fun of me?
No, I didn't make fun of you.
Okay.
I repeated back what you said.
Okay. But anyway, so it begins with, it goes through the Hebrew alphabet. So each line begins with a subsequent Hebrew letter.
111?
Yes. It doesn't say that in your Bible? Doesn't have like a little note?
It does. This psalm is a Hebrew acrostic poem. I didn't read that.
You read all these other translations.
I did. After the introductory note of praise, each line begins with a successive letter in the Hebrew alphabet.
Yeah.
And 112 is also an acrostic poem.
Yes. Yeah. So, of course, it's lost on us if you don't know Hebrew.
Yeah.
But some of the word choices that the author used was restricted because of the poem.
For those of you who are unfamiliar with what an acrostic is, think of the song, M is for the many things you gave me. O is for the other things you do. T is for the... And then it spells out mother.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, but I don't know if that's technically...
Let's move on, Ken.
I don't know if it's technically that it has to be subsequent. So it has to be like alpha, beta.
Yeah, I think it probably does for acrostic.
Yeah, so I was so excited when you said, think of the song. I'm thinking, there's a song that begins with, and we are going back to the beginning, city where we first lived, doing what we love to do.
You should work on that, Dave.
Eating fish.
EFG.
Yeah.
Goat.
And goat. Yeah.
Well, Dave, thanks a lot. I hope anybody who's been watching these finds this encouraging as much as we do.
Yes. And as fun as we do.
Yeah. And we will be back a week from sometime, and we will do 112 and see how those kind of pair together, mesh together, and what the story tells. And any last parting words for the day, Dave? Anything?
Grease,
because it's the word.
Grease is the word.
That's what I figured. All right. Have a wonderful afternoon. Hope God blesses you in many ways, and we will talk to you soon.
One of the songs that I've been trying to work on piano is Elton John.
Piano?
Yeah. Elton John's Your Song. Familiar with it?
I'm sure I am.
It's a little bit funny.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So as I was playing that, for some reason, something else came in my mind, and I started working through it. I'm thinking, oh my goodness, it works. And I did a search on the internet, and as far as I know, no one else has done this.
Okay.
'Twas the night before Christmas, and all through the house, not a creature was stirring, not even a mouse. It works. The whole thing works in that song.
So you think Elton John stole The Night Before Christmas?
No, I think he used it as inspiration for his Your Song. And so I'm going to, the one pianist that we have is a big Elton John fan. And so I'm going to share it. And I think this Christmas that maybe he could work up something really nice. And I shared it to my family. And my wife immediately says, "You saw that on the internet." I go, "No, I did a search. I couldn't find anywhere that this has been done." And then I thought, why would it ever be done?